Meet Dora, the 11-month-old wombat. Relaxed, rotund and tons of fun, thanks to the efforts of the caretaker of Blackbutt Nature Reserve, Mr Ray Raisbeck, and his wife Janet. Less than a year ago, Dora was brought to the Raisbecks after her mother was struck by a car. To a couple who've nursed a platypus in the bathtub and fairy penguins in their courtyard, Dora didn't present too many problems, and thanks to their care, she survived and thrived. Dora is only one of a number of marsupials who've been saved from certain death thanks to their efforts. Together, the Raisbecks have converted their home, which abounds with evidence of their love for animals, into a sanctuary for the orphaned and injured. And according to Mrs Raisbeck, it's a labour of love. Many people wouldn't know how you cope with so many strange house guests. How do you do it?
Well, trial and error.
What would you do when you first get an animal?
You check it out that it has no injuries first.
There's no reason why
The Herald won't ever. You just
These will all be on display.
Feed and feed.
Caring for the animals is an expensive business, and the Raisbecks receive financial assistance from the Native Animal Trust Fund. However, they also elect to feed birds that aren't injured, but enjoy a supplement to their diet. And the house
They've been
rule
dumped in the
is
reserve
that more
and,
domestic pets can't
just
learn
one
to
more
live in
mouth to
harmony with
feed.
the wild birds and animals, then they're out in the cold. Some of the animals will be available for viewing during Australia Week, from the 21st to the 26th of January.
You'll be lucky if it goes to air there, because they have never mentioned that in.
Trains were running up to midnight last night. This morning, the 24-hour stoppage was put into effect. Members of the AFULE were meeting Newcastle today to discuss reports on meetings with the state government and the state rail authority over manning orders on Hunter Valley trains. The stoppage, however, is not likely to affect coal loading at this stage. According to the SRA, they achieved an all-time record for coal haulage from Hunter Mines to Newcastle last Friday, with 107,200 tonnes of coal. Port Waratah and Kooragang currently have 500,000 tonnes of coal stockpiled, enough they say to see them through the 24 hours. Grain loading is also said to be under control, as grain was brought in by road until early this morning, enough stockpiled to continue today's loading. But only about half the scheduled passenger services between Newcastle and Sydney will operate today, according to the SRA, with a large number terminating at Wyong. Mid-North Coast XPT services this morning and this afternoon are cancelled, as well as tonight's North Coast overnight express in Sydney. The Flying Australian team of John Pine, Roger Clark, Gordon Smith and Graham Milford, the drivers who stepped in late yesterday to replace John Smith, won the second international sedan test at the Newcastle Motordrome by a clear 5 points, with a final score tally of 38 points to Australia and 33 points going to the United States. Despite a repeat of Saturday's threatening rain for the first test, a large crowd of attendants witnessed the Yanks receive their second defeat at the hands of the Australian team. Ray Godley for the United States scored 10 points, Ed Wilbur 9, with Rodney Combs and Ken Brightfield scoring 7 points each. For Australia, John Pine and Gordon Smith scored 12 points each, Roger Clark 8 and Graham Milford 6. The third test to be held on Sunday night at the Motordrome could see a clean sweep series for Australia, and the first time ever for an Australian team to defeat the Americans 3-0 in a Test match series 11-year history.
Second will go to Big Ed. Third will go to Rod.
You want, this is what you get. This is what you want. This is what you want. This is what you get.
In the mid-1970s, Johnny Ross's notoriety as lead singer of the hardcore punk group the Sex Pistols rested as much on his antisocial behaviour as the group's anti-establishment music. Well, since the group disbanded 7 years ago, Johnny Rotten has re-emerged as John Lydon, lead singer of Public Image Limited. Not exactly a Mr. Nice Guy, but an angel compared to his former alter ego. The group performed last night at the Newcastle Workers Club, and judging by the reception they were given, his new image is right on target.
You didn't miss it because the production was so marvellous and the performance was so great.
That was with Richard Harris.
For encouraging it and giving opportunity to professionals. I wouldn't dare do what you're doing, and he said, you got to go.
According to his daughter, Betty Lind, Colin had taught thousands of young people the finer points of acting and singing. One of his star pupils is John Shaw, who recently appeared on stage with Joan Sutherland. Colin received an NBN
they're great stars and people.
And he will be sadly
they're still great citizens of. He was a man of infinite jest. Colin always had a joke in spite of a lot of illness. He fought illness, or he fought it with a smile, and the great courage that he showed. Always had a smile, always had a joke, and he's told me a few beauties in his time too. And it was a honour and a privilege to have been numbered amongst Colin Chapman's friends.
Area, that doesn't be good. This is 100 acres, you can appreciate that area. You're talking about 3-4 acres of land. It's tidal,
was expected to attract
and
between
it's covered
60
in
and 100,000
reeds and swampy
visitors a
area.
year.
There's mangroves around it.
Built
It's quite,
on a
we're going to do a
40-hectare
boardwalk.
site on the
It's
Pacific
tidal.
Highway, about 9 kilometres north of Karua. Much of the natural bushland will be retained, including a 50-metre wide buffer of trees between the Pacific Highway and the complex. The Leyland brothers, however, are aware that many similar tourist developments have had to either close or wind down their activities because of financial difficulties.
We've been around and seen most of the other developments. In fact, I think we've probably seen all of them. We hope, anyhow, that we've learnt what it is that people like, and we're going to try and put these ideas together into one place. Everything in it will be very Australian. The whole theme will be about Australia, and what we're saying is that it's the kind of place where people can come and see Australia without having to do all the travel. And we think that's what will make it work. We hope it is, anyway.
Jim Beach and Julie Burns, along with Susan Leasley as backup driver, arrived in Newcastle around midday today after walking from Karua. The girls left cairns on the 1st of November on a fundraising walk to Melbourne for the heart transplant program. Since then, they've averaged 60 kilometres per day and hope to be in Melbourne on the 29th of January.
About 3 years ago I read an article about two people who had walked from Darwin to Adelaide, and I thought, well, it'd be a real challenge to do something like that, so the idea originated about 3 years ago.
It's been really enjoyable. As far as the walking's gone, we are trying to raise money for the heart transplant program. That's picked up really well the last couple of days, but before that wasn't very good at all.
Lions clubs along the way have been offering assistance to the team, providing much-needed cool drinks, showers and fundraising assistance. Deputy District Governor of the Lions Region 4, Mr Sid French, met them on arrival in Newcastle and will alert other clubs further along the way. Fundraising up till recently has been disappointing, according to the team, who are also looking for a petrol sponsor, as they say that area has been their biggest outlay. The girls are now walking to Belmont, where they'll stay overnight before continuing on tomorrow.
away. Roger Clark comes in second. Gordonsby hung on for third. And Ray Godsey had to be content with missing out on a point there.
The first three heats
1 minute.
were evenly contested, and neither team was able to establish a lead. Heat 4 was packed with
The
incidents
one
when
of
the two
Ed
Pine
Wilbur,
brothers were involved in a
and they're
crash
away.
with Ed Wilbur
Now
in
Brightfield on the inside, Ron Pine, look at Ed Wilbur trying to motor his way through. John Pine's gone up and over. The race, no, the
Australia
outcome
substituted Gordon Smee, and despite another
Gordon
crash
Smee is
involving
gone.
Smee and Wilbur,
Ed
Australia
Wilbur's
took the lead
car
with a
has
Gordon
fallen
Smee
apart.
win and a John Pine third placing. In the next
Test
heat, the
series to
Americans struck
Australia.
back and took a 2-point
There's
lead
one lap
and were
left
able
to
to
go.
keep that advantage
Australia
until
running
heat 8,
1 and
when the
2 in
Australians
this
took 2
last
points
heat
to bring
with
them
Ron
back into
Pine
the
and
lead.
Roger
A
Clark.
final effort by
A great
Australian
drive
Roger
by
Clark,
Roger
who
Clark.
support
He
Ron
got through
Pine,
from the
gave
back of the
Australia
pack.
a 1-2 finish
He's
and a win
covering
by
Ron
38
Pine
to
all the way,
34.
parked
In
right
the
on his
final
bumper
scores,
bar,
Gordon Smee top
and that's a
scored for the Australians
deserved
with 12
drive to
points,
the
and
Australian
Rodney
Roger
Kearns top
Clark
scored for
to
the
take
United States
Australia
with 14
home to a
points.
great win. Ron Pine first.
The public hospital system is in a state of crisis, according to most hospitals, and perhaps the most worrying aspect of the whole situation is that there doesn't seem to be an end in sight in this dispute between the doctors and the government.
There is a state of siege going on at the present time where both government and medical profession are no longer talking to each other properly. I think, unfortunately, that both have not really listened as well to each other they should have done, and I think that the central issue, as you say, has been lost.
According to Dr. the central issue is our decaying public health system, dilapidated buildings and archaic equipment. Meanwhile, more visiting specialist resignations are taking effect. Most elective surgery has been cancelled and all emergency surgery is being done by staff specialists at the Royal Newcastle Hospital. And doctors expressed concern about the cancer patients, saying that this may result in loss of life. The regional director of health in the Hunter, Dr. Owen
Quite correct in some
believes this will not
instances.
eventuate.
We have the best transport and retrieval system in the whole of the state. I see no situation where, because of this dispute and in this region, a patient should die during transport.
A hospital like Walden District Hospital that doesn't have any staff specialists is suffering. Normally at this time of year, it has 1 ward closed. This year, it has 3. And according to the chairman of the board, Mr. Jack Devon, Walden District Hospital is looking seriously at employing staff specialists.
Do you think that it took something like this to make the government come to terms with the fact that they need more staff specialists in our public hospitals?
I believe that, and my board of directors believe it too. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly than that.
Today, the Australian Medical Association announced that the private surgeons have decided to provide an on-call emergency roster.
The emergency roster will begin immediately, and a duty surgeon can be contacted by ringing Newcastle 611 611. But why have the doctors decided to provide this service? Dr. Ian Walker.
The reason they are providing the service is they can foresee that a dangerous situation could occur if a surgeon could not be available immediately. And secondly, they are the best people in which to advise people in a serious illness situation of how to be managed correctly. And they will supply that advice as to how that illness should be managed when they are contacted.
Land valuations as a method of determining rate increases was tossed out some 4 years ago in favour of rate pegging. With the current system, the Minister for Local Government sets a limit on how much councils can increase the rates. This year it's 8%, and at least 5 councils in the region have applied for increases of above that amount to make ends meet. Alderman Beryl Humble, who's on the executive of the Local Government Association, believes that the land valuation system should be brought back, or that the fees should be abolished.
Set a limit. Alderman Humble, do you think that the Minister's ceiling of the rates is a fair thing?
I don't now. It may have been effective the first year that it came in, but I think it's too hard now for councils to try to stay within that confine.
Now what you're advocating is that land rates should be determined by the value of the land. Will this mean that there will be increases in rates for most people?
Well, I think that in some cases there'd be a decrease, but at the moment there's a ceiling, and so there isn't a decrease at all. But if it was confined just to the land valuation, there could be cases where the land values would drop.
Yeah,
Mr. Eric Jackson from the Newcastle Civic Association disagrees. He says
You've seen that. What would happen, do you think, if we went back to the system where rates were worked out according to land values?
Well, I think you'd have a proper system in Newcastle, because they take great care to keep their increases to a minimum. But you get some profligate authorities who raise their rates 20%, and that wouldn't be a very satisfactory system.
The current test series between Australia and England is providing women's cricket with more media coverage than it's ever received before in Australia. That could be partly due to the fact that the West Indies gave Australians little to enthuse about with our men's national team performances. However, the fact is women's cricket has arrived, along with Newcastle's Sally Griffiths, who's just played a vital role in New South Wales' drawn match against England. Sally took 3 wickets for 9 runs in England's first innings and then figured in a 5th wicket partnership of 62.
I was quite pleased. I put in quite a good performance, and the English girls weren't quite as good as what I expected them to be, and I put in quite a good show.
You were named player of the match after the game. Did that surprise you?
It did a bit, but I batted well and scored 36 in quite short time, and I also got 5 wickets against them, so I was surprised, but it was good.
You weren't named in the Australian side that plays England this weekend. Did that also surprise you?
It did a bit, because the Australian team has been named with injured players, and I don't see how they're going to beat England with injured players, so I might get a show in the 5th test, hopefully.
What I can say is that the annual report of ANL is at the printers. As soon as it's released from the printers, I'll be making it available to the public. I want it available and for public discussion as soon as possible.
But the ANL is cutting out 1/3 of its fleet.
It's stripping back to a lean, hungry and aggressive public enterprise. It needs to be that to compete in the world market in which it operates. And like any other prudent, responsible commercial enterprise, ANL has to pay its way. Now it's getting ready to re-equip, it's getting ready to concentrate on those areas of its activities where it can perform creditably.
But is ANL paying its way? I mean, year after year for the last few years it's had a massive injection of federal government funds.
I'm sorry, it hasn't had a massive injection. That's been its problem. Year after year after year under Conservative governments, and particularly under the Fraser administration, ANL was denied clear policy guidelines from government. It was denied adequate capital. It was denied competence and quality of management from government. What we've done as a government, and we make no qualms about it, because we have no intention of accepting responsibility for the mismanagement, the incompetence of the successive Fraser administrations in respect of public transport enterprises.
Would the federal government be likely to turn ANL over to private enterprise at any time in the future?
Not at all.
It's been quite a week for Billy Sanders, the globe-trotting Speedway International. The 29-year-old rider collected his 6th Australian Championship at the Pioneer Park Complex in northern Queensland last weekend. The title is also the domestic qualifying final for Australian riders hopeful of doing well in this year's World Championships. Sanders was odds-on favourite to win, and he didn't let anyone down, scoring a 15-point maximum and assuring himself of a place in the overseas final of the World Championships later this year.
I'm enjoying it while I'm successful. As soon as I start to struggle and other riders start to put over me all the time, then I'll give it up. But while I'm in there with a show and I can beat, while I can still beat anybody in the world anywhere, then I'll continue to ride.
On Wednesday night, Sanders was back in Sydney for the annual Coca-Cola International Masters at the Liverpool circuit. The Masters is unique in concept in that the final is over 10 laps and brings together the top 10 riders. Sanders won the inaugural classic last year, and he was to be the pace man again this time.
They're racing, and Billy Sanders gets away smartly going down into the bottom corner. Sean Moran going out after him as they move on to the back straightaway, and here they come. Just look at the field as they come up into the top corner with Bobby Schwartz making a good move behind Sean Moran. 1 lap completed, 9 to go. The last corner comes up and he's going to do it. 2 years in a row, the Australian Championship and the Masters Classic, and there he is, Billy Sanders lifts the roof off the grandstand.